You already know this feeling. You pick up your phone, you open an app, you scroll for a bit. Nothing interesting. A bit more. Still nothing. You're not enjoying it. You're barely even paying attention, and you keep going anyway. At some point, you put the phone down, look around, pick it up again, open the same app, scroll the same feed, see most of the same things you just saw. And here is the question nobody actually answers. You were bored. You knew you were bored. You knew it wasn't going to get better, and you did it anyway. Why? The answer is not weak willpower. It is not laziness. It is not even addiction, at least not in the way most people use that word. The answer is something much stranger, and once you understand it, you will never look at your phone the same way again. Because the people who built these apps, they understood exactly what they were doing, and they did it anyway. In 2017, a man named Sean Parker gave an interview that should have been front-page news everywhere. Parker was the founding president of Facebook, one of the original architects of the platform that rewired how 3 billion people spend their time. And in this interview, he explained, calmly and without much apparent guilt, exactly how they built it. He said, and I am quoting directly, "The thought process behind building Facebook was, how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? The answer," he said, "was to give users a little dopamine hit every once in a while, through a like, a comment, a notification." He called it a social validation feedback loop. And then he said something that should sit with you for a while. It's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. He then added, almost as a footnote, God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. The man who built the machine admitted it was designed to exploit you, and then expressed vague concern about what it might be doing. That is what you are dealing with. So what is the vulnerability? To understand it, you need to go back to the 1950s to a behavioral psychologist named B.F. Skinner and a box. The Skinner box was a simple experiment. A rat is placed in a box with a lever. Every time it presses the lever, food comes out. The rat learns this quickly. It presses when hungry. It stops when full, predictable, controlled, rational. Then Skinner changed one thing. He made the food delivery random. Sometimes the lever gave food, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes twice in a row. Sometimes not for 20 presses. No pattern. Completely unpredictable. And the rat went insane. It pressed the lever compulsively, constantly, long after it was full, long after any rational calculation would suggest it should stop. It pressed and pressed and pressed because somewhere in its brain a circuit had been activated that said, the next one might be the one. Skinner called this variable ratio reinforcement, and he found it produced the most persistent compulsive behavior of any reward schedule he tested. More than guaranteed rewards. More than frequent rewards. The unpredictable reward, the maybe, was the most powerful force for keeping a behavior going that he had ever observed. Casinos figured this out decades ago. That is why slot machines are the most profitable machines in any casino. Not because they pay out the most, because the unpredictability of the payout creates a compulsion that is almost impossible to consciously override. And the people who built your phone apps studied this. Every time you open Instagram and scroll, sometimes you see something funny, sometimes something that makes you feel something. Most of the time, nothing, but occasionally, unpredictably, you hit something that gives you that small internal reward. You are the rat. The feed is the lever, and the algorithm is Skinner's box, optimized by the most sophisticated machine learning systems in human history to keep you pressing. Here is where most explanations get it slightly wrong. Most people say scrolling releases dopamine, and that is why you keep doing it. That is true, but incomplete. And the incomplete version misses the most important part. Dopamine is not primarily a pleasure chemical. It is an anticipation chemical. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan spent years separating two things the brain does that most people assume are the same: wanting and liking. And what he found changed how we understand addiction entirely. Your dopamine system drives wanting, the craving, the urge. the pull towards something. A completely separate system drives liking, the actual pleasure of having the thing, and in compulsive behaviors, scrolling, gambling, checking your phone, the wanting system runs completely decoupled from the liking system. This is why you can scroll for 40 minutes, feel almost nothing, feel vaguely worse than when you started, and still not be able to put the phone down. You are not enjoying it. Your liking system got almost nothing, but your wanting system is running at full power, continuously, because the next scroll might be the one that delivers something worth having. The dopamine is not rewarding you for what you found. It is firing in anticipation of what you might find next. Research published in 2025 by Sharp and Spooner confirmed this directly, describing dopamine scrolling as a distinct behavioral pattern driven by variable reward schedules that mirror the neurological mechanisms of gambling. The brain builds tolerance. The same content that once gave a small reward now gives nothing, so you need more. Scroll further, stay longer. An offline life, slower, less stimulating, less immediate, starts to feel genuinely flat by comparison. Here is the part that nobody in the conversation about phone addiction ever mentions. This is not new. The mechanism that makes you scroll, variable reward, unpredictable outcomes, the compulsion to find out what comes next, is the same mechanism that kept your ancestors alive. A hunter moving through a landscape does not know when the next meal will appear. The animal might be behind this bush, or the next one, or the one after that. The brain that gave up easily, that decided there probably was nothing and went back to camp, that brain did not eat, did not survive, did not pass its genes on. The brain that kept going, that felt an internal pull to check one more bush, one more valley, one more horizon, that brain ate, that brain survived. That brain is yours. The compulsion to keep going despite uncertainty, to stay in the seeking state even when the immediate reward is absent, is not a bug in human psychology. It is the feature that built civilization. The problem is that it evolved for a world where there was always something real, potentially over the next hill, and it has been transplanted into an environment specifically designed by very smart, very well-funded engineers to exploit that impulse indefinitely. The feed has no horizon. There is no next hill. There is just more feed. Asa Raskin, the designer who invented the infinite scroll, later said he regretted creating it. He estimated that the infinite scroll alone was responsible for around 200,000 hours of human time being wasted every single day. He built the feature in about an hour. He never meant for it to be addictive. He just removed the natural stopping point, and without a stopping point, your ancient seeking brain has no signal to stop. So why can't humans stop scrolling even when they are bored by it? Because boredom is not the relevant signal. Your brain is not asking whether you are enjoying this. It is asking whether the next one might be better. And the answer is always maybe. That single word. That ancient circuit, that feature of your brain that survived 2 million years because it refused to give up on the possibility that something good was just ahead. Now it runs in a box that was deliberately built to make sure that signal never turns off. The next time you pick up your phone and start scrolling and notice that you are not enjoying it and keep going anyway, that is not weakness. That is a 2-million-year-old survival mechanism being run against itself by people who understood exactly what they were doing and did it anyway.